So you may or may not know that over the last 18 months, I've been going to therapy on a regular basis. Now, therapy is one of those things that not a lot of people like to talk about in really great detail. There's a stigma to it. You know, people are kind of ashamed about the fact that they're having to go because you really don't go unless something's wrong with you. And so as a result, people really don't talk about therapy in any kind of great detail. So today, I'm going to talk to you about therapy and why you should go. So as I'm going through this video to start editing it, I realize that I am completely out of focus. The sound is good from what I can tell. The chair is really well focused, it's nice and crispy, but me, I am just a little bit out of focus the entire time. It's annoying as hell, but it's one of those things that I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to improve myself, and it's going to be a learning process for me. So there's going to be some things like this that are going to end up happening from time to time, but I just wanted to kind of cut away and let you know, I realize I'm out of focus, it's my bad. I'm going to try and fix it for the next time. I might even redo this video another time further down in the future if you feel like it's useful for you, but for now, I'm just going to end up putting this up because, you know what, I don't have the time to reshoot this. So my apologies in advance, hope you like the video. So the first reason why I believe you should give therapy a try is there's no instruction manual for life. You know, we all, do the best we can, we muddle along, including the therapist, we all try and do the best we can. But the coping mechanisms that we grow up with or that we develop over time are things that typically have either come from parents or they've come from friends, or they're just things that have kind of happened themselves naturally over time. Now, not all of those things are going to necessarily be healthy. For me in particular, I ended up eating my feelings. If I didn't feel well, if I didn't like something, if I was feeling kind of down, I'd pick myself up by going to McDonald's, going to Burger King, going to Pizza Hut, all that kind of stuff. And obviously that's not a healthy way of doing it. That, I'm an emotional eater. But I didn't really understand what was going on in my body and in my mind to understand why I was doing what I was doing. Now, in going to therapy, those are the types of things that can be analyzed, discussed, and then worked through. And because we have no clue which things are necessarily good for us, bad for us, or whatever it may be in between, a therapist can genuinely help with that kind of process. That's exactly what they're trained to do. If you take something like emotional eating too far, like I have, there can be physical problems associated with that. For example, weight gain, obviously, but now acid reflux, issues with health, cholesterol, all that, triglycerides, all of that kind of stuff can end up starting to become a problem for you. So I'd highly recommend it just for that one alone. Number two is a little tutti frutti, to be perfectly honest with you, but hear me out. Sharing your problems with someone who is qualified can be an incredibly cathartic experience, SAT word. Now, it's one of those things that until you start doing it, you really don't recognize how freeing it can be to talk about your problems with someone and have them not give you any judgment, have them not give you any opinions, to just listen to what you're saying and to, give you some feedback, help you get through it, find ways of dealing with it. But then once you start doing that, you feel more comfortable, and then you get that positive experience, and then you want to do it even more. And then that's where the magic happens. You really start finding and unearthing some real gems in doing that kind of thing over and over and over again. And as your relationship with your therapist starts to deepen and get more and more intimate, the things that come out can be things that you never thought were really an issue. And then somehow in discussion with your therapist, it comes out as like, wow, I had no clue that was even a problem. My final one for today is coping mechanisms. So I talked to you a little bit before about coping mechanisms and how we tend to develop our own coping mechanisms as we live. Now, the secret is kind of there in the name, coping mechanisms. You're not actually dealing with anything. You're just trying to cope with the stress of your life. Now, if you try and cope and cope and cope for too long, it's kind of like treading water. You can do it for a bit, but after a while, you're going to drown. And that's exactly what happened with me. And I think it's fairly common for what happens with other people. You try and cope with the stress for as long as you possibly can, and then your body just decides no more. And then you develop some kind of physical manifestation for the mental and physical stress that you've been put under. So a therapist can help you with that. They can, for example, first thing my therapist mentioned to me, Mark, start meditating. I'd never thought about meditating before, but if you'd seen me at the very beginning, 18 months ago, at the very beginning of my therapy, you would absolutely be astonished at the difference between me then and me now. Now, if you're not sure, go check out my very first video on YouTube. I think it's called Panic Attack Confessionals or something like that. It's long, but it's also just me explaining what was going on. I was in a really dark place. I'll put a link to it up here for you, over there, over here. I never know which side it is. I'll put a link to it up there for you so you can have a look and see what you think. But what I've learned from then to now has been huge, and that's been down to my therapist. Overall, you can tell, obviously I've had a great experience in therapy. It's been 18 very successful months, and I've really come along leaps and bounds in that time. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you 3 things that you should look out for. They're not necessarily negatives, but they're also problems with the whole therapeutic process. They're things that I've learned that I kind of want to share so that people can understand exactly what it is that you're doing in therapy and how you can maybe sidestep or take some shortcuts to having therapy work for you faster. So make sure you check out that video tomorrow.